Well, today is World Humanitarian Day, and we are joined by Sandra Seaborn from Yonge Street Mission, who leads a faith-based program to break the cycle of poverty in Toronto. And so today we're going to discover how Yonge Street Mission supports the vulnerable through housing, employment, and mental health, and so much more. So Sandra, thank you so much for being with us here today.
It's my pleasure. Glad to be here.
And thank you for what you do. I really do appreciate it, especially on Humanitarian Day. It's great to talk about the pressing issue of poverty in Canada. And I know just in Toronto, that city alone, there's 364,000 people who live in poverty. But maybe for those watching today, they live in maybe smaller communities, they think, is poverty a real issue in Canada? What do you say to that?
Well, it is. It is. And first, let me even say thank you for pausing to stop about Humanitarian Day. I mean, it is a global issue and there's poverty around the world, but we don't want to forget that it is here in Canada, just like you said. About 1 in 10 people in Canada now face some kind of poverty. So that means it's a kid on your sports team.
Right. And how would you define poverty? Like most people, they maybe don't even know. It might be right in front of them and they don't know how to see it.
Yeah, I mean, we can always look at the statistics. I mean, you can look at the numbers and what the poverty rates are, the low income measure before tax or after tax or market basket. But I prefer to talk about what it means to someone. And what it means is that often your housing is unstable. Maybe you're paying more than 50% of your income in rent. Maybe the rent goes up and you don't know what you're going to do to either pay it or what you're going to have to give up if you choose to pay it. It means that you're hungry. It means that you're hungry. Means that maybe you're going to a food bank. Maybe you're skipping meals. It also has impacts for health. So you can look up life expectancy by postal code, and poorer areas have shorter lifespans. And in fact, if you get to being homeless, it's 20 years off your life. So it has a health impact as well. And then it has a heart impact. And often sort of you get disillusioned and lose hope.
Yeah, and that is really kind of an alarming number when you think 1 in 10% of Canadians are living with that insecurity, that fear. I'm not certain about the future, and it's actually taking years off of their life. And so you did a great research paper, and you actually have explored some things that you're doing to make a difference to this great, real problem that we're facing.
We did. Now, Yonge Street Mission has been around 128 years, and so we have offered bread and hope from the horse-drawn wagon and hard pews to today's digital age. But we always want to be meeting the need of the day. Sort of how do we show up today to bring the good news for the day? And so this white paper looked at the interventions that we are doing and the people we're serving in Toronto. We have a fairly comprehensive measurement system where we look at the outcomes, sort of looking at our impact. And we found 3 things that made a big difference. Now, those 3 things I'm going to tell you through a story because it's a little easier to hear them than kind of look at all the statistics. So I want to give you a story of somebody called Chantal. She came to us having just experienced a crisis. And she had 3 kids and a difficult relationship. And the crisis was almost Amber level alert. In other words, the kids, they disappeared. There was a relational issue. So when those kids came back to her hands in her custody, her home, obviously Children's Aid was called, and they needed to look at the situation to see, is this a safe place for the kids? And that's where we got called in as a community support to see, these are poverty issues, are these parenting issues? How can we support this family towards thriving? Our vision is a city where people, not poverty, thrive. And so they call us in, we provide these community supports. We start with parenting, but quickly realize there's been trauma. Mental health counseling comes in there. And as we begin that work with this person, we realize we need to support her with some financial needs because kids need to go back to school. This has meant she can't work. So we've got some immediate, really deliberate interventions around those finances. And then that got her to have confidence and hope. We got her a part-time job that gave her a thought that maybe she could try again. School was always a struggle, but she with someone in her corner, she's like, okay, I'll try school again. But by then, our care manager realized that maybe there was something that was actually a barrier to her at school. So not only did we get her into a transitional program, but we got her an assessment that showed she had ADHD. Now, with all that together, now she can accomplish her goals so much better. So what did our research tell us? it told us that that story has three components of what's important.
Okay.
So you got to deal with the intangible, the mental health, the trauma. You've got to deal with that or you get stuck.
Right.
You've got to deal where necessary with that emergency financial crisis. In this particular case, a little bit of back to school and a little bit of resources for the learning assessment. And you've got to deal fundamentally with system navigation. It's kind of a social worky term, but it's sort of understanding what resources are available to you. And every community is different, but there are resources available. So we had to support her through figuring out how to apply to school, how to work with Children's Aid to demonstrate that she is a good parent. How, like, those are the kinds of things. Together, those three things help people transition successfully out of poverty.
Well, I love that because I think it really speaks to community. The reality is I think there's some who are watching and they think, well, we just give food or some financial support, but it's way more than that. There's a reason a person finds himself in this position, and to navigate through systems and community support and helping them is so important. And again, with the mental health and trauma that we're experiencing, to help that. So yeah, thank you so much for what you're doing. I love that. It's so helpful. And we're going to be back in just a moment. But yeah, we're going to continue this conversation with Sandra, exploring what it takes to make a lasting impact and why the power of personal connection should not be underestimated. Stay with us. We are back with Sandra Seaborn of Yonge Street Mission. And again, just so fascinating, the research that you've done. But again, research is great, but we got to put it into action. And so you've been working for over 25 years in this area. Why do you think the approach of relation-based, community-based systems are so important?
That's such a crucial question, right? I'd love to start with just a little snippet from one of Jesus's interactions with his disciples. It's the summertime. Maybe some of your watchers have enjoyed being by a lake, maybe a little campfire, right? And so there's a story of in the resurrection time that Jesus is there where he has a fire by a lake and he feeds them.
Yes.
But he doesn't just give them fish, right? After he gives them fish, he deals with Peter's trauma, right?
That's so good.
He restores Peter, which equips him to do what Peter needs to do.
Right.
And it's all this, it's the combination of that care for the body and the care for the soul. And we live in a time where there is a lot of disconnection, a lot of distrust of institutions. And so we've got to start with those authentic one-on-one relationships that builds into trust so that we can deal with the fear. The word tells us that perfect love casts out fear. And so we've got to build that through those authentic relationships that show that we're trustworthy.
I love that because I think, breaking the cycle of poverty isn't just fixing a system. It's actually infusing it with God's incredible love. And I know you have so many great stories of transformation and the things that you've seen. Can you just share maybe one of those for our viewers right now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to give you one of a gentleman who comes to us and just says he needs a job. And I'm going to say, let's call him Nathan. And he comes to us and says, I just walked by, I want a job. Can you help me? And so we listen and we realize that he needs a job, but we also realize he's living out of his car.
Right.
And that's causing health concerns and obviously mental health concerns. And he's only eating one meal a day because he can only work part-time when he lives out of his car. So we begin to work with him, and we've got to start with the first thing, which is the food. And then we've got to get the work, which then we connected him to a program. He wanted to do IT work. And he was able to get front-end web development work with our support, get housing with our support, and obviously through that process, always get also the mental health supports that come, because even once you get the work, you have to work through what happened to you.
Yeah.
It doesn't just magically go away.
Right.
You've got to kind of work it through so that you can keep thriving in your future life.
Well, I love that holistic approach, but I also know that there are people watching and they might be tempted to believe that maybe this is a big city problem or they can't do anything about it because they'll never have interaction. I know you don't believe that. I don't believe that. I think we can all, as followers of Jesus, do something. So what would you say? How can those watching, whether they live in an urban, rural setting, big city, small community, how can they make a tangible difference to start changing this trend so that we don't have 1 in 10 Canadians living in poverty? What would you say to them?
Well, I'm going to start by telling you that I'm a pastor, so I'm going to do 3 Ps, all right?
it.
You don't mind?
No,
Okay.
I like it
I'm
a
both
lot.
a social worker and a pastor. It's a good
It's a
combination in
great
my line of
combination.
work. So the first P is you got to pray boldly.
Yeah.
And you got to pray boldly for yourself so that you can see what God wants you to do. You got to pray for people who are in need. You got to pray for people who are already helping people in need. You got to pray for our elected officials that they make good decisions about the systems and what
Yes.
can be done on a social scale. So pray boldly and listen to God. The second thing is practice giving, not just money, although money always helps organizations like ours, YSM, but it also, the giving is giving of your time.
Right.
Figure out where you can volunteer in your community. Somewhere already exists that you can help, and practice giving to learn. You need to learn what it is in your neighborhood that is needed. And then the last one, now this is a bit of a stretch, but I told you it'd be 3 Ps, is promenade, because we walk with people. And so that is the incarnational Jesus way. That is what we do at YSM, and is that what everybody can do in their neighborhood. They can do it you can do it for your nephew, you can do it for your neighbor, and if it's in 1 in 10, there is someone in your sphere that you can walk with and provide hope for.
Yeah, like even if you go to a church, there's probably someone in your church setting or scenario. I guarantee there's someone probably in your neighborhood, but I'm going to add a 4th P, proximity. What I have learned in our context is that when you're actually in proximity to people who are in poverty, it actually changes your heart, challenges you. We discovered in Niagara, food scarcity among kids was so important. And so we decided, what can we do to be present? And I think that's the beauty of incarnation, God's presence. And so if you're watching right now, I just want to encourage you, the reality is that you can do something, you can make a difference. And I love those P's. And so again, what are they? Pray boldly.
Yeah.
So maybe today think about praying, God, maybe not only alleviate the problem, but show me what I can do to be a part of that. The second P was?
Practice giving.
I love that. And again, one of the things you do by partnering with us is that we are partners. And so that's a wonderful thing. And the third P?
Promenade. So walking with people in proximity. We can put them together in a 1.
I love it.
You can't go to 4 as a pastor. You gotta keep the 3.
You gotta stick to 3 because that's what people remember. No, well, thank you so much for what you're doing. It is a privilege and an honor to partner with you. And thank you for letting our viewers today know what we can do to actually be a part of God's solution, spreading God's love into our nation today. Well, for more information, you can go to 700club.ca. We have a lot of resources there available to you today.